Good evening, everyone.
Want them unmuted?
Yeah. We're unmuting you, and I was going to ask who had a question about some spiritual gifts or guidance. I had one question earlier about astral travel, and what's her name?
Jessica.
Jessica.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You had a question about astral travel?
Yeah, I was just trying to get it straight as to the difference between astral travel and lucid dreaming.
Okay. Well, astral travel is when you're really making a choice to go somewhere, and it's something that you're consciously making a choice in. I astral travel quite often, and I've done it all my life. When I was a little kid, my grandmother used to say to me, she'd wake me up in the middle of the night or early in the morning, and she'd say, "You need to come back." And she would watch me leave the body and go. And I would go places and just love the idea of viewing things and seeing things all over the place. And that was setting the intent and going to where you wanted to go. I remember flying on Route 422 and zigzagging all the telephone poles. And it was just really interesting to just go out and play in that manner. Now, on dreaming, I believe the dreaming is something that we're not necessarily setting intent, and we're not focusing on it in a manner of saying, this is what I'm going to do or where I'm going to go, but the dreams may come to you as a symbol of guidance. And I find that lucid dreaming, I find is wonderful because if we preempted by putting out the thought, please share something with me that is important to me or guiding to me in the future, we can do it that way. And then the dreaming aspect will bring segments of things in our life that we can recognize as triggers. And when the events occur, we recognize the trigger of it and say, okay, well, we're going to be standing in front of a blue car. And we recognize the blue car, and then we recognize the circumstance that comes into lucid dreaming. And that'll tie in. I've had that happen many times where I'd remember one little part of the event, and that would trigger me to remember the rest of it.
Okay.
It's not always would I remember things in a stream of details, but I would remember one thing, and then the stream of details would come in. But that's also the pre-programming of the lucid dreaming, and letting yourself be in that state of mind to allow yourself to just, in a sense, float out there. And that works very well. It works very smoothly. And when you're doing the astral projection, I find with that, especially in the evening going to bed, I will at times send out the thought and energy that I'm asking Spirit to take me where they need me, to share with whoever's in need, to be healed, to be helped in some form. I don't question it. I don't look at it. I don't even know who it is. It's just the idea that I put my trust in Spirit and I allow them to take me wherever. And I've gotten many times phone calls back from people, and they would say, well, you were standing at the end of my bed, I've been sick, and you were giving me healing. Or that they would receive a message in a dream. And I've had it happen countless times. That's occurred there. But that's setting the intent of putting yourself in Spirit's hands and astrally allowing yourself to just be in that position, allow them to guide you and take you wherever you're needed to be.
So, if you're astral traveling while asleep,
Yes.
does that feel different than if you're dreaming?
Well, if you're taking it into a conscious dreaming level, it does feel different, because on the conscious dreaming level, you're not planning it per se. It's just coming to you if you just allow the dream to come to you.
Yeah.
And it's a random thing that you may receive in that dream. On the astral travel, you've already put forth the intent. And on the astral travel now, if you do it the way I've done it, I put forth an intent of trust, and I let Spirit take me wherever is needed. But if you're going to astral travel in a sense of, let's say, remote viewing, wanting to go somewhere and see something. I know one gentleman I read for that he went to his condo on the Keys in Florida right after the storm. and he realized what happened to the condo and saw the condo. In his mind, remembered all of the details of it. And he said, my boat's fine. It's still tied to the dock. He said, I'm amazed. He said that it wasn't destroyed or thrown up on shore. And he had astrally projected there. And all the details he had in the astral projection was exactly what happened when he got there. It was still tied to the dock, and he had one window broken. So,
Okay.
you know, if you really set that kind of intent and purpose, you can focus yourself into really an enormous amount of detail at times.
Okay. I will be practicing.
All right. Does someone else have any immediate question? I got a few things to share, but someone else had an immediate question? Raise your hand if you do. All righty. One other thing I was thinking about that it is pertaining to astral projection in some ways, but I'll put it this way. Remember, at times you'll feel like you nod off, and you just nod off for a moment, and you come back, but you feel like you've been somewhere. If we practice the thought of putting out the energy to say, where did I go? Remind me of where I've been. We're going to start to have vision of where we've been and what happened in that visual contact. And now, mind you, there's a part of it that's just a visual contact that we witnessed it happening, and we did not project for that particular view. On another level, we can project for a particular view and view it. I've gone from here to Lloydale and walked through my house, and I felt the energy of the home. I felt the energy of the cats that are there. I felt the energy around that home. And I know I did it, and I know I came back and I was fine. And it was something that we all have the ability to do. It's just that we may not have the belief and understanding of doing it. And I find that it many times happens with us without us thinking about it or projecting it as a direct command. It's just something that we have desire and thought, and it transfers into it occurring. And we can have that happen actually quite often. I many times have had it happen where I would remember it after the fact. I would literally go somewhere, remember the view of it, the vision of it, and I'd be back in my body and recognizing it. Wait a minute, I was just there. I just saw that. So it's something we can do readily without really being in what we would consider the conscious control or the conscious forceful choice. We can have that happen easily.
I know I've traveled before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've practiced enough to have it feel easy when I'm consciously trying to, if that makes sense.
Well, you haven't reached a point yet of trusting the fact that you're not in control.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because there's a part of you wanting to make sure that I have the destination in my mind and exactly where I'm going to be. And there's times you haven't had it happen enough where you could really project outwardly and say, okay, that's where I'm standing, and that's the view I have.
Okay.
And you're going to build more trust in that ability to allow that to occur.
Okay.
And as it happens, it becomes more comfortable. It becomes more at ease for you. My grandmother used to tell me, when I grew up, we had a large bedroom, and she was on one side of the room, and I was on the other side of the room. And she'd get out of bed and come over and put her hand on my chest at times and say, Gregory, come back. And I would wake up, and she'd say, where were you, and what do you remember? And she'd explain to me how I had gone, because she was in tune. And there's many times I'd go for what I would say is my spirit walk, and she'd go with me. So I remember a lot of things that sometimes others don't. And if we just set that intent, and the biggest thing is having that point of trust that we're trusting, and we'll be fine. There's nothing going to happen negatively. You know, I've had people say to me, well, we'll break the silver cord and all kinds of things. And it's like, no, that never happened. That wouldn't be any issue. So building the trust is really the biggest step. And you're learning to do that more. So it's going to gradually increase for you. Any other questions we have here of those of you on the screen? Yes. Hello.
Hi,
Hi, what's your question?
I have a question. It relates to course my wife and I took this past weekend on shamanism and shamanic journeying.
Yes.
When you astral travel, do you need to protect yourself against negative entities out there? Is there a risk of you encountering something you really don't want to encounter?
Well, let me share it this way. If we allow ourselves to play with things, we can be played with. If we do it in a prayerful, sincere manner, there's no problem.
Okay.
As long as we, in our own mind, and you referred to it as protection, if we send out that intent and thought, if we're surrounding ourselves in God's presence and light, I would do that. I do that all the time. I did a little prayer before we started tonight with the class. And I always do that in a sense of protection. When I start a circle, I have a prayer that I do during the circle, in the beginning of the circle, to ask Spirit's energy and light to be with us, be within us, and to fill the room, fill the circle. And that way, you're asking for the highest and best, and that's your focus of intent. So anytime you're going to do something, that focus of intent, I would certainly go with.
Okay.
And when you're talking journeys, in what manner would you describe your journey? What you're feeling at times you consider a journey?
Well, consciously, I don't recall actually traveling anywhere, but I know this past weekend in the shamanic workshop, we journeyed to like the upper world and what they call the lower world.
Yes.
Which are both, and those are just names. They're both, safe places. But, we encountered, good, safe, friendly beings and, animals and animal spirits.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun, but yet in what we call the middle world here, there are attachments. There are entities that attach to you, negative entities, and then you got to have them removed. And
Well, see, I believe very much that if we're already in the prayerful thought of guidance and protection, that those things will not happen. Preempted with that thought and prayer, and we have that intent and thought in mind, we're not going to have anything bother us at all.
Okay.
And I look at the idea of what you were terming the upper world, the lower world. I find the energy there now. Would you recognize in the lower world the connection to the animals and animal guides and protectors?
Yes.
I have an experience in my life where I felt some negativity during a circle one time, and a very large bear appeared in front of me and stood in front of me and shadowed me and stood up on its rear legs and shadowed me completely. And I felt very protected. And that bear has come to me at times when there's been some negativity of some form or kind around. And I find that a lot of times it's with the group of people you'd be staying with. There may be somebody there for the wrong reasons, and they're there to take energy from someone if they can, or anyone they can, and that they would like to draw upon it, be it a spirit energy or be it another person in the group. And I've seen it happen. And as long as we're surrounding ourselves in the manner that we spoke of, it won't be a problem. I had a number of people in the circle that I knew personally, and they said to me after the circle, they didn't bring it up during the circle, but they brought it up after the circle. One lady said to me, she says, you had this huge bear stand in front of you and reach with its paws over your shoulders, and she said you disappeared. And I was being surrounded and protected.
Okay.
And it's something that I do believe that there can be negativities, but I really don't believe they're going to happen as long as we're doing what we need to do to have that intent ahead of time. We're surrounding ourselves in that light and that thought.
Okay.
And then you're protected. My father, he made a couple comments to me when I was a child. He said, all guts and no brains. because there were times I trusted what I felt so completely, and I would not challenge the trust in it. I would just go with it. And there were times he considered it dangerous, what I was willing to do, but I felt completely comfortable, protected, and guided. And that's where I find that in setting that intent, we're bringing the balance into our lives, and we're living that harmony. And as we live that harmony, nothing negative is going to be occurring.
Okay.
It's not allowed. It's wonderful you're researching what you are and experiencing it. I've had it happen where I've seen animals and different ones come to me, and I know that it's not just one at times as a guide or a protector. Depending on some of the circumstances that you're in or around, different entities will come to you at different times as a guidance or protection.
Okay.
Any additional question?
No, so I understand just keep my intent pure
Yes.
and everything should be fine.
Right. Keep your intent pure and do a little thought and prayer ahead of time that you're thinking about it in the blessed manner.
Okay.
I don't look at it as different religious belief systems. I look at it as something that we're asking for God's guidance to be there and protect us. No matter what belief systems we have or religious belief systems we have, we're just asking God to protect us.
Okay.
I find some people put thought into guides and teachers and entities and certain spiritual belief systems, and I want to say that's fine, but I look at it very simple in my life that, you see a lot of these books in the bookstore, keep it simple, stupid, and we just keep it simple and we use that energy in that manner, no matter what language or religious belief system we're in, doesn't matter. We're surrounding ourselves with that light and protection.
Okay. I was told a long time ago by someone that you go straight to the top,
Yes.
And then God will do what needs to be done, and you don't have to deal with all the trees and the forest. You just go straight to the top.
Well, I believe that very much, and that's where I have always thought I put out my intent and thought to God's presence, and that's there, and He ordains other loved ones and spirit entities to come to us and take care of things.
Okay. Got
Good.
it. Thank you.
Yes.
It's interesting because just on that thought, I've been doing a lot of work as a healer lately, and as I heal, people are often asking me, who are you channeling? And I remember the first time someone asked me, I kind of went, spirit? And they said, yes, well, what lineage are you channeling?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, spirit, love, whole love, like, where else do you go? And I find that over the past 3 weeks, it's kind of been a bit crazy because so many people I've had quite a few people coming to me with, feeling like there's negative entities or voices that aren't serving them and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I find that when we go anywhere but spirit, like, why would you go anywhere but the top? Like, if you're going to learn something, why not learn from the best?
That's right.
So why channel anything but the best? Because I feel that when people start channeling all these different things, that's where they start getting in trouble. And that's what I'm seeing more and more in my work.
Well, the ego takes over where I have a certain entity that I'm reaching, and I've had it happen many times where people would come in and they'll go, well, I work with this entity, that entity, another entity. And I want to say it simply, I've always believed in self very strongly. Go to God, ask God for the guidance, and He will send the angel loved ones to help us and guide us in whatever form and whatever way we need. And it's not a circumstance of us choosing an entity. It's asking God to guide us and God makes a choice in entities and guidance to help us. And that works so well. I've never had a problem with it. And I find a lot of people will choose certain entities and certain belief systems, and they wonder why they really get off track. And I see some people that, for example, I'll just a random example. I've seen a lot of people teach. And being in Lilydale, I've been there a long time now, and I think this coming season is a registered medium there 47 years. And I look at the idea of being there, and I've seen so many classes and teachers and different seminars about various things. I mean, literally hundreds of things. And I see some of the people that are coming from ego, and they love presenting power, and they love presenting the fact that their way is the only way. And I look at it as God's way is the only way. And I look at it very simply that we're needing to look at things in a way that why are they wanting to sublet all these energies off into entities that are at a lower level. And I don't care where they think they're at. I look at it as God's presence is there. And I remember having a class one time with children, and a little girl said to me, she says, well, when I go to sleep, I see faces. And she said, they're all bent and misshaped, and they're a little scary. And I said, well, you need to focus on the thought of like going in the Empire State Building and pushing the button for the top floor. And you want to go there first. I says, and then they're going to guide you to wherever else you need to be. And she said, okay. And I talked to her, I think it was like a week later. And her mother said to me, would you have time to talk to my daughter? She goes, oh my God. She says, you shared with her to go to the top floor. And she said she was in this elevator in her dream. And the first floor was faces that were distorted. The second floor, the third floor, and she was going through it. And as you went higher on the floors, there were more harmony and angel loved ones and healing and beautiful light. And so bright a light when she got to the top, she could barely see. So, to set the intent for someone that young and to focus them in that manner so they build the energy of this is our intent and focus of going there. That's so important. And that's what I find with a lot of adults. There's an egocentric energy with many humans. All of us have some to some degree. But if we look at it and realize that we don't have a clue what's going on in the real world, and I'm not talking about the conscious physical world we're walking around in, but I mean the real world. And that's what I find that, we need to be aware of. And if we just focus the intent on the highest and best, we're going to bring harmony and calmness to whatever circumstance we're in. The more we listen, the more guided we are. And I find a lot of people will get very caught up in the physical world. I've watched people spend a part of their lifetime doing everything in the physical world the way they want to, and fighting everything, debating everything. Everything was a stress to them. And when they finally reach a point where they let go and they allow themselves to be guided, everything comes so much smoother and easier. And that's what I find a lot of people are now beginning to do, is they're awakening to allow the guidance to be there. It isn't what we necessarily focus on wanting. It's what are we really here for? Lessons in our lives, we learn, we grow, we progress. But if we look at things in our lives and realize we sometimes get into this forcefulness of I want that outcome or this answer, and that isn't the answer we're supposed to have. And if we were supposed to have it, it would have worked easily. And this is where if we allow Spirit to guide us, we're going to have that much better and more than what we've ever thought of on our own. I've never had a thought on my own that God didn't provide for me something even better. Any other question?
Sarita's.
Hi, Serena.
Hi, Reverend.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Leslie. Okay, let me see. I wrote my question. Do our prayers for the deceased help those on the other side? Like when you pray for them in their growth process, like on the other side?
Yeah.
What effect do our prayers have on them?
When we say a prayer, we're directly reaching out of supportive energy for whoever you're praying for. And whether they're on the spirit side or in the living, there is an effect of energy and a flow there. That's like when I'm when I'm dealing with someone that's on their deathbed, for example, I always put out the energy that I'm giving and sending healing. But I also add in that when we do the prayer, I always add in that here or hereafter. In other words, we're not forcefully making a choice to, in essence, heal them and they have to stay here. We're praying for them that the highest and best of God's choices, guidance, and love is there. And if it's meant for them to go on, they'll go on. If it's meant for them to be here, they'll be healed and they'll do better. And yes, they are affected a great deal by the prayer on the spirit side to us, as well as our prayer to them.
To us? I didn't catch that.
If we're sending out thought and prayer, say for example you lost someone in your family, and you're sending out thought and prayer for them to be healed and be guided, that is invoking God's energy and you're supporting the energy. In other words, your acceptance in prayer that you're sending them thought and energy of healing. Where the healing would be on the spirit side or here, doesn't matter. And it works. I've seen it happen. I've had spirit come to me and ask me for prayer. And I would work on sending out that thought and having that prayerful energy there for them. And I've gotten response back through other mediums at times in Lloydale that they said, well, you just had this happen and this person is wonderful now, and they asked you to pray for them.
Are they able to make amends on the other side? No, like if they've done anything hurtful here, are they able to make amends from the other side or not anymore because they're not in the body?
No, I feel they can make amends and learn, grow, and progress. And
I can't hear you that well, Reverend. That's I'm like trying to hear. I don't know if the connection sounds a little low.
I'm hearing a lot of fuzz on your side.
Yeah, the radiators. Let me go to the other one. The radiators, so on. But okay, let me go maybe over here. But you also sound low. Okay, I'm not in that room anymore.
Well, I feel an energy there that when you're talking about prayer, if you send out the thought from this side for someone over there, not only is it something that they open their eyes to see, they understand more, and there are many mansions in heaven, so they're at a level of understanding that they leave the earth plane in, and then they gradually progress in a level of understanding that surpasses where they were when they were here. And that is then when they're really learning, and they're able to have forgiveness, and they're able to have the thought and prayer in their own energy that they can look back at what they've done, be it a wonderful thing or a negative thing. They can look back at what they've done and they can bring peace to their own life. And they can also add peace to the person in the living if they've done something wrong or negative to them. By their prayer, they're helping the person in the living also.
Oh, they pray too on the other side.
Yeah.
Thank you, Reverend.
You're welcome.
So it's a gradual process. It's not overnight. It's like it takes time for them to grow. And
Yeah, it takes time for them to accept, let's just say it in a simple term and say, when they leave the earth plane and they reach the spirit side, it's a whole new set of rules and understanding. And it takes a while to grasp that and understand it to the degree they need to so they can really utilize a positive energy. You know, like the Catholic organization has at times talked about purgatory. Well, I don't view it as that. I view it as an encapsulation of them as a soul, so they learn and grow and understand over there what the new rules and guidelines are, so now they can utilize them in the correct manner, because our perception of things when we're on the earth plane is not a match for what you have over there once you make that transition and you're fully over there. And you understand so much more where there's forgiveness, there's healing, there's prayer. There's many things that build and really become important.
thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Come on, you got some questions somewhere. Well, let's do this. People talk.
Sorry.
Hi, Suri. You have another question?
I'll ask a question since nobody else is going. When I was younger, I used to have a lot of dreams. but recently I haven't had any dreams. I'm sure I'm dreaming, but I'm not remembering them probably, right? Like, and I used to have precognitive dreams too, but I don't know what happened to my dreaming.
Well, one of the things you can do is when you're going to sleep at night is put out the thought in prayer. You're asking to remember in the morning in your conscious mind your dreams, your teachers, your loved ones, your guides. And that way you're setting the intent to open the conscious mind in the morning and you'll remember these things. And not only remember a dream, but what did the dream mean? You know, you set the intent that not only am I remembering the dream, because sometimes we can have some pretty wild dreams. And if we set the intent to remember it, but we also set the intent to understand it.
Yes.
And as we do that, it makes a huge difference.
Okay.
All right. Does Nancy have anything you'd like to ask? Nancy?
I hear something that's very soft.
Hello, Nancy.
Oh, she just muted herself. I think her volume, she's trying to talk, but her volume's just not up enough.
Your volume's not up enough for us to hear you, Nancy. Okay.
Oh, there
Can
she
you-
is.
Yeah, we had you for a moment. Turn your volume up.
Might be her cord.
It's possibly one of your connections on your cord or something there that's not quite right. But we had you for a moment. Okay. Are you there? No. We can't hear you on this end. Anyone else have any questions? You know, sometimes Spirit comes to us in a way that we may not understand why we feel what we feel. And when we sense things, and we sense it, but we're not sure what it's for or what direction is it taking us in, we need to take a moment to sit still and get into a quiet space and ask them to come back with a direction or recognition of what it is, instead of it being something we just blow off and go on. Many times we'll be driving and we can't stop and, you know, stop, look, and listen because we're driving and we're consciously responsible. But I feel there's many times I have things pop into my mind and it'll just come to me for a flash. And I find myself, if I can just be quiet for a moment, they'll bring it back in more detail and then we recognize what the guidance really is. And I feel every one of us has that happen to some degree and we lose the thought quickly. And I feel to set that intent of doing that and have that calmness really brings things back to a balance and we can recognize and understand them more. You know, sometimes we dream things that come true. Literally in a sleeping dream, we'll dream things that come true. I've had that happen many times. And if we set that intent and we just ask for the guidance, if we're too wound up during the day or the circumstance winds us up too much in a sense of subject matter, we can set that intent for night and ask them to come to us and give us guidance or an answer in that aspect. You know, I've had it happen where you could be very emotionally involved in a circumstance or someone being ill or even someone passing over. And if we can just separate it for a moment and put out that intent, we'll have it come through in a dream. You know, I've had Spirit come back to me after passing and they've come to me within an hour. And I've had other entities that didn't come for weeks or months. And I've had it happen where, you know, they'll come through in an hour. When my mother passed away at 4:10, at 5:12, she was standing at the end of my bed. And she explained to me a lot of things. My grandmother did also. And I was in Lloydale, New York, and my mom died in Youngstown, Ohio. And she came through at 5:12 and explained everything. Looked a great deal younger. She looked like she looked when I was 15 years old. And they do a quick change over there. I tease people at times by saying the women will have to come back different because sometimes I've seen it happen where they don't come back the way they looked when they passed. They come back the way they looked that they chose to look at in a prime of their life and the way they really felt good. And that's how they come back. my mom come back looking like when I was 15. So it's pretty amazing what Spirit will do and the choice they make and what presentation they have. I've actually had it happen where someone did not recognize the loved one that passed because they didn't see them as what they passed at and how they looked when they died. They came back as looking so much younger. So don't be surprised if you have something come up where you dream about someone and here they come in looking so youthful.
Hmm.
Any other questions we have here? Is Nancy able to come online now? I don't hear anything from Nancy.
Oh, wait.
Hello.
Hi, you made
Hi. Yeah, I think my computer has to ask me if I want to unmute before I can go forth. Anyway, back on the astral projection, I was wondering about deja vus.
Yes. And
Have
what's on the deja vu?
Well, if you go into a place, it's very familiar, you even know what's going to happen next. Was that because you astral projected previously to that same place, that same activity, or the timeline?
I would say that's very possible, but I'd also say too that I believe very much that the events that happen on the earth plane, say for example today, I feel are already occurring on the spirit side. And when we reach the point of those matching and we're coming into the consciousness and recognizing that these events are occurring, it is then a deja vu. I've been here before, I've thought it before, I've seen it before, I could even predict the outcome of things at times. And that's where I believe very much that we have events occurring that we're not on a conscious basis remembering or aware of, but they are occurring at another level. And when they reach a point of matching on the earth plane, that's when we have the deja vus occur.
Okay. Thank you.
And that can be pretty powerful at times. I've had deja vus occur that were, amazing. You have another question?
No, that was it.
Okay. Where are you calling from?
Ohio.
Alrighty. We're going to be in Ohio. What month is that? June. We'll be in Ohio. I will be at the Eastwood Mall, and I'll be staying in a hotel there and working with people.
Okay, I'm coming to see you.
I'm sorry, that was Poland. I'll be in Poland.
Okay.
Poland, Ohio. That's good. Oh, you have an appointment on the 8th?
Yes.
Alrighty. We got it. Very good. Any question, Ed?
That's it for me.
That's it? Okay. Anyone else have a thought or a question they'd like to present? Please raise your hand if you do.
3.
Hi, Sari.
I don't mean to hog everything up, but since nobody else is going, I figured I'd ask. I've heard that, I know that one gets signs from spirit sometimes. Like past 2 weeks, twice I found headphones, and I thought that's kind of weird. I thought that was a message from spirit, headphones. I'm thinking maybe somebody over there is telling me I need to start listening or tune things out and try to listen. Twice I found headphones. It's weird on the street.
Headphones would be a symbol of you individually listening, and that it's eliminating other things, other sounds, other voices, and it's really taking to the point of, all right, I'm listening on the headphones. And that to me would be singling down to what am I really listening to? In what guidance? When you had that come to you, in what way did it come to you?
Well, I was I was just walking, and I saw headphones and I picked them up. Somebody dropped them. And then another time it happened again soon after that, maybe a few days after.
Yeah.
In the street, just laying there. Somebody dropped them.
I think it's something that would be a symbol to you of listening and taking time to be calmer. So you're allowing spirit to work with you and you'd listen, because the headphones are headphones, but the symbol of that would be to separate and have the clarity.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And lately, I haven't been making time to be quiet too much. So makes sense.
Well, let's put it this way. You've made time to have the scramble energy, and you've had that going on. But now I see you looking at it and realizing that I need to unscramble and get in a calmer space. And Spirit will be helping you with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Anyone else? I find that we've been looking at things in life here, and let's say it in this form. The world around us and all the changes that are occurring, be it kind and all the stuff happening in wars and illnesses and problems we're having around the planet, we need to understand we can pray and we can put out the energy and thought and bring harmony and bring balance to many things. We may not be consciously there to see it, but we're adding energy in. When I close the circle we do on Wednesday nights, I always add in the thought that the beacon of light is within us, and that beacon of light shares with others. And whoever it touches, they become a beacon of light to others yet, and it travels around the world. And if we can have that thought at night when we're going to bed, that we're just asking for the harmony. We're not directing it to a particular person or place, but just asking for the harmony to surround the world. As we set that intent, we're building an energy flow, and whether we're consciously aware of it or not, it keeps expanding, and others pick up on that energy. I've had a couple people tell me in readings, I remember you saying that prayer, and I wrote the prayer down. I wrote the prayer down after I heard it on my CD. I wrote the prayer down, and I'm using the same prayer. So to me, it's like that energy builds, and it manifests in a wonderful way. And we're needing to realize that how do we allow ourselves consciously to slip into a belief system that is based in a lot of fear that we really don't need to be in? And we let ourselves think in ways that are fearful about what's going to happen. Instead of thinking about it in a positive manner, we let ourselves have a little fear involved. We don't need that. That's adding to the fear and negativity. Let's add to the positive. And I find with people, we're needing to slow our minds down and really develop that balance of looking at the positive. You know, I work with a lot of people at times, and it's been interesting. You have the person that walks in that's very positive, and no matter what's going on in their life, it seems to work faster, better, easier, and it takes better steps in a more positive direction. And then you have people live in fear, and they keep piling up the fear more and more, and they wonder why they're not able to move forward. And when we catch ourselves in a fearful moment, let's send out the thought of cancel it and reprogram what your belief system would be and what you want to have in your life and how you want to do that. Because that's a very important factor. How many of us tonight, for example, are looking at health and redefining what we're doing, health, diet, care for health, what steps we're taking? Because I feel each one of us has something that's going on that we need to pay attention to. And as long as we're paying attention to it and asking Spirit to guide us, and when I refer to Spirit, I refer to Spirit as God. And to me, the angel loved ones are ordained by God to be with us, help us, guide us. They may be giving us the words and the guidance, but it's God's presence that's directed it. And that's something that I find in the world right now. We're having so much going on mentally and emotionally, and people are under such stress. And all these different countries and all these different belief systems people have, there's a lot of energy clashing. I see it in small organizations, how much clashing of energy there is, let alone looking at the world. And I feel the more prayer we can send out in that manner, the more harmony we're going to have. Is there any other question you pose before?
Reading,
Different ways of reading?
giving messages.
Oh,
If you want that, like 10 minutes.
Sure.
If you want that or not.
yeah, we can hit on that. Different ways of sharing messages. I've seen people use cards, and they develop their abilities through cards, and they feel trust in the cards because they actually reach a point of believing and recognizing the trust in that different symbols mean different things, and spirit will speak to us in that manner. And we find ourselves then where we can step beyond that. And I've seen people use runes, I've seen them use pendulums, I've seen them use all kinds of different things. And this is not knocking the idea of anyone using a tool. That's not a problem. It's the idea that we need to recognize that we can step above the tools and recognize how much spirit can directly share with us and help us, and that they can give us guidance in ways that we start to understand more and more, and we have a building of trust. You know, when spirit works with me, I completely step aside, and whatever they give me, I give. And I don't question it, I don't doubt it, I don't debate what it is, I just give it. And that's something there that I know they take care of language, they take care of presentation. It's their words and their way of doing it. And it's something that many of us are learning to open up our mediumship and ability, whether it be in a healing aspect or a mediumistic aspect of sharing messages. I believe healing and messages really travel in the same energy, and it's something that we're helping someone heal, be it mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. There's always a healing energy. I've had many people, when I'm reading for someone, they would say at the end of the reading, well, the pain in my leg is gone, or my headache is gone. You know, various things has happened to them. They feel better. And I find that the healing energy is just the flow of energy in that direction as it would be actually sharing a verbal message. And it's something that I feel each of us need to understand, that sometimes we divide things up and we put classifications, and we have this tendency on the earth plane here anyhow, that we create all these classifications for things. And I find a lot of that sort of silly at times, because I've had one gentleman, he got up one time at Inspiration Stump, and he was going to give messages. I counted the entities that he named before he would give messages. There were 14 of them. And I found it very interesting that someone would put that much into that many entities before you can share a message. I say a prayer and I go with it. And many times I say the prayer in the back without having to waste time in front doing a prayer. And I just start and I go. And it's something that I find many people have a, let's say it this way, they have a program of things that they believe they have to do before they can, in a sense, work. And I really don't believe that's the best way of doing it. And I think we need to just send out that intent, set that intent, like when I'm standing in the back and I'm going to be asked up to speak or asked up to read for people, I go with the idea that whatever the audience is needing, I put it in Spirit's hands. I don't have any idea of what I'm going to say before I walk out there. And when I walk out there, sometimes they'll give me the first sentence. Sometimes I don't have the first sentence. If I'm doing a message service, they just come up with a message and here's the person to go to, and I'll go with it. And I find that if that works the smoothest and easiest and the most pure in what Spirit can bring to us and share with us, because you're not getting in the way and there's no processing of it and reprocessing of it. I've had some people at times stop between readings and they would go through a whole rigmarole again before the next reading. And I find it's something that Spirit has the ability to move so quickly and so precisely from one thing to another without question. I've had, at times, little difficulty keeping up. I have to ask them to slow it down so I understand it. And that's how I work. And that's where, if we're looking at tools we're using, I think cards are wonderful, whatever you want to use as a tool. But let's remember the intuitive ability is not based on the tool. It's based on that level of inner trust. And we'll get a symbol. It may be on a card now, and a little later it'll pop in our mind, it'll pop in as feeling, or it'll pop in as visionary level that will recognize what it means. And if we learn that trust, we then can let the flow occur, and we're not getting in the way of it. I remember one time in an auditorium at Lilydale there, we had 65 people there, and the chairperson was at the door, and Spirit really got in a mood where they were really going to just, hey, we're going to run with it. And when it finished up, it was an hour and 10 minutes, and everyone in the room had a reading. And it was 65 people plus the door person had a reading in an hour and 10 minutes. And the lady said to me, she said, Greg, I was watching my watch. She says, you were averaging a minute a person. And she said, you were talking so quickly that she said it was just amazing what came out. And that same event that occurred, people on my right was listening to the organ playing. It was the air organ. It wasn't turned on. And my grandmother was seated at the organ, and she's been in spirit since I was 9. And the people in the audience were hearing the organ play. And it's something that when Spirit really wants to come through, we just need to get out of our own way. And as we get out of our own way, there's no question about the flow and the energy will be there. I find it amazing at times what can occur.
Man.
April 17th, we will have the next Zoom. And I'll be up in the Villages. We'll be up there, and we'll do it from there. And that'll be April 17th at 7 o'clock. Any last question?
Sari.
Hi, I wanted to know, is it best to do healing within a group, or is it okay, like, for me to just do it alone also? Is it more effective if you're in a prayer group, or?
Well, it can be more energy shared in the prayer group, certainly, but it's also something that I believe that your intent and your energy is very powerful when you put out the thought in prayer. And you can do it on your own. You don't have to wait until you're in a group. If you're in a group, that's wonderful. But if you're just on your own doing it, that's wonderful too.
Okay.
All you need to do is just have that intent and thought.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have a question before we go? Well, I think it's wonderful that you're all online, and it's wonderful to work with you. I hope you enjoyed. I hope there's something there you got something out of that you could really feel good about. And look forward to seeing you next time. April 17th, 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye.